Hey, welcome back to Low Energy Reviews, where if I seem like I'm out of sorts and extra low energy, it's because, last night, if you weren't here, we had a great time playing Oblivion. Every Wednesday is Wasted Wednesday, and as of late, I've been kind of milling Oblivion. It's been fun. Something about dog. Anyway, I am here today to talk to you about Disenchantment, which is the latest thing by Matt Groening. I am literally just finished it, and I really should have gotten around watching it sooner. As I had promised, I was originally going to review it more or less after the BoJack review, but quite honestly, I didn't want to get started with it. I just didn't want to get into a show that I had not very high hopes of. Very few people have been actually saying good things about this. And while I wanted to go in with an open mind, I had a feeling it was already going to jade me. Or perhaps more likely, they had some truth to it. And they were right. This show is by no means terrible. And it's not even meh. But it's a lot worse than I was expecting, or rather I was hoping it would be. I was hoping it to be a lot better than it ended up turning out to be. So let's break it down. Beforehand though, I just want to say I absolutely love Matt's work. But Matt, over the past few years, and you can thank Seth MacFarlane for this, has increasingly kind of lost his edge. What made him great in the early episodes of The Simpsons and Futurama, it's not even here for the early episodes of Disenchantment. It's not a good show because the same reason that The Simpsons and Futurama isn't a good show now. So it's actually starting as bad as shows that have been around for decades. Well, yeah, no, Simpsons definitely decades, but Futurama I think also decades too. Pushing decades anyway. Has been. So, as you can tell, I'm a little bit... I'm a little bit miffed that it didn't turn out to be as cool as it could have been. But let's break it down. Three main characters are Bean, or Tia Beana, which I have to admit is kind of a cute name. But everyone calls her Bean, who is a princess who has to find her way. She doesn't want to be bound in the same way as any stereotypical princess in a fantasy setting would be. You've got Elfo, who is looking very similar to Bart Simpson, but an elf, and also a Keebler elf at the same time, not fancy Tolkien-esque elf, who wants kind of the opposite at the beginning of it. He wants to find a world that is less happy than this sort of gumdrop rainbow candyland that he has lived his whole life in. And finally is Lucille, who is a demon, and I actually really like his design. He looks like an icon you used to see in coffee houses in the 90s. Very minimalistic. And while we're on design, here's something I will praise the show for. It's very pretty. It's clearly done by the same people who did Futurama, because if you look at New York and Futurama, it's a cool looking city that's constantly moving. Disenchantment, no, they're fixtures, they're set pieces, but it looks cool. It looks alright. The problem is sometimes I think it knows it looks alright and sticks on shots it doesn't need to stick on. There's a lot of dead air in this show, not as much as Family Guy these days, but there is a lot of moments that they just stay on frame a little bit too long. Simpsons does this too, of course it does. Futurama less so, but I can imagine that starting to do it. I haven't actually seen a lot of the newer stuff, but that's because I got turned off. But yeah, there's some great backdrops and locations. And like old Simpsons episodes, occasionally you'll find like these little tongue-in-cheek jokes if you look in the background. There's always something going on, always something moving, and it has a nice bright style that I really like. Um, but that's really one of its only saving graces. The humor was kind of like the way modern Simpsons does. Every season I will have a few chuckles. I didn't go, ha! Like, let's just say, I didn't break down laughing the same way I laughed when I thought about the dog guards, you know? Which I'll swear I won't laugh. I'm still not 100% sure what was so funny about it, but I think that just added to the humor. Um, but there were moments where I genuinely laughed. There's a character who appears everywhere called Chaz. I thought he was hilarious. There's this one-off character called Mr. Touchy. He was fun. Um, and some of the jokes can be funny, and it can, it also clearly has a plot, and sometimes those plot elements can be a little bit fun as well. But the humor-wise, and I'll get to the plot, obviously. Humor-wise, it wasn't belly laughing. It wasn't a lot of witty banter. It wasn't a lot of venting. It was just not even slapstick at times. There's just what you see in The Simpsons and Futurama, but in my opinion, far less charming, far less engaging. Um, but because it's on Netflix, they can get away with one or two things more, except that it's 12s, A. So it's not going to get too dirty, too adult. Characters die, or should I say, people die, not a lot of actual characters die. Um, but the thing I noticed about it was that it suffered from the same thing a lot of shows did, and now we get into the plot, which of course is it goes nowhere. There is two storylines at the start and at the end of it. The first one is wrapped up incredibly quickly, and then there's a lot of downtime where we're getting hints that there's still a major storyline. But there's at the end it gets an actual interesting storyline, which is a teaser for season 2, which is fine. I'm cool with that. It makes sense, but it didn't hook me. Frankly, I'm exhausted watching that show at the end of it. It lost me so quickly. I stuck with it to pay attention so I could do this, but I mean, as you've told from my rambles anyway, it's kind of hard to talk as a rule, so it's kind of hard then to talk about a show that didn't constantly compel me to watch it, you know? I thought the characters seldom learned any lessons. There seems to be only hints of consequences. For example, by the way, this is obviously going to have some spoilers. You know, when you watch a review of anything, I expect to see spoilers. There was one episode that started off with Bean getting thrown into a convent for throwing a party that almost got the kingdom destroyed in the previous episode. Okay, consequences. Before the halfway point, she's out of the convent and she's back. And you're just there like, what? Like, what the hell? She goes on adventures and learns nothing at the end of them. The same with The Simpsons. The same with Fry and the Planet Express crew. You know, nothing changes. It's all back to the same. Except there is a plot in this one, and this is unusual for a Simpsons show, and, it's promising. That one makes it really promising in many ways. There's a plot. But I'm not getting a sense that a lot will change. They'll just change the setting up a little bit, and then it's all going to be the same. So I'm just there watching, like, why do I care about these characters? Like Elfo, for example, has a crush on Bean, but you can see it's going nowhere. But they're still pushing it. Why? It's kind of like Brian with Lois, or Milhouse with Lisa. No, it won't go anywhere. It can't, because that's not the way this show is. Meanwhile, shows like BoJack, and this is a fair assessment because they do swim in the same oceans in many ways, BoJack can just, like, will have unrequited love. And it'll pop up from time to time, and it won't just go away. It'll either convalesce into something else, or it'll just happen. Which will almost be anticlimactic, to be honest with you. Because the only way to go from there is up for a little bit more, margin, and down. And the same thing would happen. But here's something else. In many characters in BoJack, I really like. I actually don't like any of the characters. I don't like Bean. I think she's well written as a spoiled, just becoming 20, you can barely even call her a teenager anymore. I think she's selfish. I think that she is, she's causing so much problem for so many people. Like, early on, she ends up robbing a tomb of her ancestors, and she knows it's wrong, but then she just goes off and becomes like a drug fiend in another episode. And you're just like, what? Like, what the fuck? What's the point of you learning these lessons if you're not going to learn your lessons? If there's not going to be movement of the plot forward? They're just set pieces. And then it hit me what it is. It's a sketch show. Shows like this are just animated sketch shows in a setting, in a place. They'll give characters that have been established something to do, and then they'll go and do it. Now, this one obviously, again, has a plot, but I don't see that plot doing anything. And at times I don't care, because like I said, I don't care about Elfo. I don't care about Lucille, who I think is horrible and is at times meant to appeal to be this good character. By default, he's not a good character. He's a relatable character. Everyone has their good and bad sides that tell them to do things. But it seems he always wins out at the end of it. Or if he fails, it's not like he'll always be now mistrusted. It's a show that doesn't meander quite as much as The Simpsons, but The Simpsons, up to season 10, in my opinion, had so much more to it. Same with Futurama. Until it got cancelled, it had so much more to it. And it didn't have an overarching plot until very near the end, a lot of them. And Simpsons never had an overarching plot. Characters would show up and their stories would go on for a little bit, like, say, Homer's mom. But I keep on talking about these other shows, because frankly, Disenchantment doesn't have a lot going on. It's one other thing I noticed about the show, that I'm trying to get into words right. At times it tries to be darker than it actually is. There's one scene where they see like a bunch of cannibals, and they find like their abattoir, and there's another scene where there's this evil society, and like there's this exorcist guy, and there's a lot of things going on, but the show feels like it hasn't earned it. I'm not invested. I don't fear for Bean when she's fighting monsters or bad people, because I know she's going to be okay. Just like I know, I'm not going to spoil him, I'm just going to say one of the characters does end up dying. I don't care if he comes back or not. In fact, a part of me kind of hopes that he doesn't. And I don't think there's going to be any payoff to that. If he does come back, so what? And if he doesn't come back, so what? You know? And at the end of the day, so what? You know? Now, if you like the show, if you like what The Simpsons is now, what Family Guy is now, Futurama is now, then go and watch it and be happy. You don't need me to tell you that, and I'm not going to take that away from you. And like I said, I got the occasional laugh out of it. But from now and again, I was just desperately avoiding my phone, because I knew if I started looking at it, I'd pop on YouTube and then suddenly... and then, you know, it'd just been background noise to me. I can't recommend it. I can't recommend it on my personal tastes. But if you like it, fair enough. I can kind of see why you like it. It's kind of got a... There is a story of sorts, but it's a story that's not going to have a payoff that it's going to be worthwhile, especially over years of watching. The next season comes out in 2019 at some time. But I don't think I'll watch it, not unless somebody tells me, hey, Season 2 is remarkably different. I've been proven wrong about that before. You ever watch Turn Washington Spies? They listened to the complaints after Season 1 of that. And I think it became a much better show. But I can't see that happening for Disenchanted, because anyone who watches it is just going to like this sort of thing, or is not going to come back, or is not going to tell anyone what they want changed. And there's no need, because it's going to have an audience. At the end of the day, it's Matt Groening. You know? I honestly think Matt is a great idea guy. And David X... Is it David X. Cohen? The guy who may help make Futurama? But I don't think that they can keep it up. I'll be very happy if I am proven wrong in Season 2. I will tell you that now, because I see potential. I just don't see it right now. So I'm going to watch it, and if let's say I have somebody over and they want to watch something, and they say, oh, I haven't seen Disenchanted yet, I might try to switch them over. Oh, have you seen the new BoJack? I wouldn't mind. Or hell, let's try a brand new show. But if they want to watch it, I'll be like, that's okay. But I'm going to be on my phone for a lot of it. I'm going to be making us tea and drinks and food, or playing games. You know, every once in a while look over. Oh yeah, I remember this part. And then just... That was a lot of wait for nothing, wasn't it? So, I don't actually have an idea for my next review. I am going, like I said, to the States in 2 weeks, so I don't know if I'll be able to sit down and watch a film, but I'll be able to watch a film if it's on Netflix. So, if you got a suggestion for a film or another show, just not Big Mouth, or was it Big Face, Big Head, something like that. I can't even remember the name of it. It's Family Guy came up with. I wouldn't suggest that either, for different reasons. Although I will say I've always respected them for trying something different. This isn't even trying something different. It's just a new location. Futurama has the future. Simpsons has a bizarre version of our world. Disenchanted has a fantasy setting. That's kind of generic as well. They didn't even really spice it up all that much. But, like I said, it's pretty, and I got a few chuckles, and if you like that stuff. Oh, one more thing I will say in its favour, just before I wrap up. The voice acting isn't so bad. They got Joe DiMaggio, and, or DiMaggio, I can never pronounce his name right. The guy who did Bender, and Draken from Kim Possible. And there's a great show. And then they got a lot of people from The Simpsons in as well. See who you can spot. But again, I can't recommend it just on those things. It needs to have a hook. It needs to draw you in, or it needs to have a potential of a better season. So yeah, sorry about that. Sorry about those tangents. I'll wrap it up now. Like I said, if you have any suggestions for me to watch something, post it down in the comments. Along with things like, God, that was a terrible review, and you look like shit, and you were so drunk last night, and you look sexy. That last one, actually, I might appreciate most of all right now, because I do look like shit, and I need a little bit of love. My beard's going off to one side. Have you seen it? It's going like this. Driving me crazy. Anyway, like I said, thumbs up, thumbs down, comment, notification, subscribe. See you all on Friday for when I do when I start the weekend gaming binge. But yeah, I am out. I am out to do literally anything else. Actually, I could do with a cup of coffee, something to perk me up. Anyway, I'm out.